The sky was still a deep indigo when Nia Davis slipped on her racing flats, the familiar click of laces tightening echoing against the concrete of the Riverside Trail. At exactly 5:45 a.m., she stepped onto the path that hugged the Mississippi River's edge, her breath misting in the cool morning air. The world was silent except for the soft slap of her feet on the pavement and the distant call of a solitary heron taking flight over the water. Steam rose from the river's surface in pale tendrils, drifting toward the treetops heavy with dew. Nia inhaled deeply, tasting the clean metallic tang of pre-dawn stillness. Her muscles hummed with yesterday's track workout, a pleasant ache that reminded her why she loved this hour. The world hadn't woken yet, and the only judgment came from her own stopwatch. She lengthened her stride, thighs burning as she pushed past the park's entrance gazebo, where a half-moon perched low over the horizon. 2 miles in, she reached the stretch lined with iron benches and low stone walls. Street lamps cast pools of golden light on the path, and Nia noticed how the shadows wavered beneath her feet. She shifted into a faster cadence, marathon pace, knees lifting, arms swinging with precision. Her heart hammered a steady rhythm in her chest, lungs drawing in crisp air as she counted her breaths. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Suddenly, the red and blue flash of a squad car's lights spliced through the mist ahead. Nia eased to the side, pulse spiking. The cruiser rolled alongside her, engine idling. Inside sat Officer Brian Thompson, uniform crisp and expression unreadable. He opened his passenger door and stepped out, his polished boots thudding softly on the wet pavement. "Ma'am," Thompson called, voice firm but not unkind. He held up a flashlight, its beam slicing across Nia's reflective gear. "This section of the park is closed to foot traffic before 6. Mind telling me why you're running here so early?" Nia slowed to a jog, wiping a bead of sweat from her brow. "Good morning, officer," she replied, keeping her tone steady. "I'm training for the city marathon. I'm on a strict schedule. 5:45 a.m. is my only window before work." Thompson's gaze flicked to her bib pinned discreetly beneath her jacket, its faint outline visible even in the glow of his flashlight. He squinted. "Training," he repeated, then asked quietly, "You sure that's it? No reason to be out here alone at this hour?" Her heart stuttered, not with fear, but frustration. She recognized the subtext. A black woman, running alone before dawn. Suspicious by default. Yet Nia refused to let indignation crack her composure. She met his eyes directly. "I've completed over 50 solo runs here without incident," she said, voice calm. "This park is where I find my focus. If you want, you can look up my registration with the Marathon Committee. My name's Nia Davis." Thompson hesitated, thumb hovering over his radio. The night was still. Even the river held its breath. Finally, he nodded curtly and lowered his flashlight. "I'll let you continue, but keep your pace. Don't startle anyone coming in." He offered back her hands and pointed to her watch. "Stay safe, and keep me from having to stop you again." As the cruiser's taillights receded into the gloom, Nia resumed her stride. The chill returned, but now her blood burned with resolve. Every dawn run was a testament to discipline, to perseverance, and to her right to claim this space, regardless of who watched from behind tinted windows. And tomorrow, she would be back, stronger, faster, and every bit the marathoner she was determined to become. The cruiser's engine idled low, its red and blue emergency lights slicing through the pale mist rising off the Mississippi. Nia Davis slowed to a jog, then finally came to a standing stop at the edge of the path, hands on her hips, breath rising in gentle clouds. Officer Brian Thompson stepped out of his squad car, flashlight trained on her in a crisp cone of light. His uniform was impeccable, but his posture was rigid, every inch the professional, yet every line of his body betraying suspicion. "Ma'am," he began, voice measured. The river's distant roar softened the echo of his words. "You said you're training for the marathon, but this park is off limits until 6. Why aren't you on the road?" He flicked his flashlight toward the no pedestrian sign, barely visible beyond the lamppost. Nia pressed a hand to her side, drawing in slow, controlled breaths. The steady beat of her heart thudded like a metronome in her ears. "Officer, I'm aware of the rule," she replied calmly. the misty air turning her words to soft vapor. I cleared it with park management weeks ago. You can verify with the recreation office. She offered him a crisp laminated permit taped to her jacket's inner pocket, the edges slightly curled from sweat. Thompson's jaw tightened. He took the permit but didn't glance at it. Instead, he kept the flashlight trained on her form-fitting jacket and the bib number pinned beneath it. "You're out here alone before dawn," he said, voice low. "Is there anyone you're meeting? This isn't a safe place for a lone runner." His tone wasn't accusatory, technically, but the implication hung heavy. "I don't trust you." Nia felt a flicker of irritation, but she refused to let it flare. She met his gaze evenly. "No, I'm by myself," she answered, tilting her chin up so the beam wouldn't obscure her eyes. "I prefer running alone. Better focus." She could smell the faint tang of exhaust, the damp earth, the faint sweetness of early spring blossoms along the riverbank. She let him take it in. "I've been up before sunrise every day for the past 2 years. I know this path like the back of my hand." Thompson narrowed his eyes, radio microphone clipped to his vest. He reached for it, thumb hovering, then paused. "We've had reports of break-ins in nearby neighborhoods," he said, stepping closer so his voice dropped to a confidential murmur. "Someone could be casing houses. You understand why I have to ask." Nia's pulse surged at the insinuation. She straightened, folding her arms across her chest. "I understand the concern," she said, voice steady but firm. "I'm not here to case anything. I'm here to train. If you have doubts, feel free to check my credentials with USA Track and Field. My name's Nia Davis, the same one on my driver's license." She slipped her license from her pocket and held it out, her fingers brushing against his glove. He took it, scanned the name under the dim glow of the cruiser's interior light, then returned it without a word. For a long moment, the only sounds were Thompson's soft footsteps on damp concrete and the steady burble of the river. Finally, he exhaled and tucked the license away. "All right," he said, voice gruff but not unkind. "Just keep your pace between the bench row and the bridge, and if anyone approaches you, slow down and let me know." He flicked off his flashlight, and the park returned to its pre-dawn half-light. Nia nodded once, sliding her license back into her pocket. As the cruiser's taillights blinked out and the mist closed in, she restarted her watch and pushed off into a smooth, powerful stride. With each step, she carried a quiet defiance, proof that her purpose here was far greater than suspicion, and that her resolve would never be dimmed by another's doubt. Nia's lungs burned as she regained her marathon pace, the Mississippi's mist curling around her like a silent witness. With every measured footfall on the damp asphalt, her thoughts drifted back to the earliest days when doubt shadowed her ambition. She saw herself at 16, standing on the grass of her high school track in a faded orange singlet that carried the name of Oakwood High. The sun had just crested the horizon, and the air smelled of cut grass and nervous excitement. Around her, teammates, mostly white, jostled and laughed, their warm-up shorts swinging carelessly. When the starter's pistol cracked, Nia surged forward, her legs humming with power, only to hear hushed whispers behind her back. "Who does she think she is?" "And must be a fluke." She pressed on, every stride fueling a fire inside her. Crossing the finish line in first place, she expected cheers, but instead met uneasy silence and sideways glances, as if her victory unsettled some invisible balance. The scene shifted to her freshman year of college, in a crowded athletics office at Riverside University. Nia remembered the day she learned about the scholarship trials. Packets of application forms stamped priority for legacy families. She stood in line alongside students whose last names dripped with connections, relatives on booster boards and alumni committees. When she turned in her own meticulously prepared essay on perseverance through adversity, the secretary barely looked up. "We'll let you know," she murmured, eyes already scanning the next applicant's pedigree. Nia left clutching her acceptance letter weeks later, heart soaring, but the quiet insinuations lingered, that she was a token pick, not a champion earned. And then there was Coach Hernandez, whose memory surfaced next, a broad-shouldered man with salt and pepper hair who'd seen young runners at their most vulnerable. Under the fluorescent glare of the university gym, he'd pulled Nia aside after practice. Sweat stained her practice t-shirt, Her calves still trembled from hurdle drills. "You've got raw speed," he'd said, voice gentle but unwavering. "But you need belief. Not from me or anyone else, from yourself." He handed her a dog-eared journal filled with quotes from black sports pioneers. "Write down every moment you outwork your doubt," he encouraged. "Those pages will remind you who you are when nobody else does." Nia had stared at the lined paper, her own name scrawled on the cover, and felt a surge of purpose she'd never known before. Back in the pre-dawn hush of Riverside Park, Nia's stride never wavered. She recalled the countless mornings she'd risen before her roommates had even stirred, sneaking out in the chill to rack up miles while dorm lights blinked off behind her. She remembered the sting of rejection letters. "We regret to inform you," and how she folded each one into sharp creases, then used them for scrap paper to sketch running drills. Every no had become fuel, every sneer a sharpened spur beneath her feet. Her breath steadied, and the world around her, the river's constant flow, the distant hum of city traffic, slipped into harmony with her heartbeat. The memory of those battles past was no longer an anchor, but a springboard. As the eastern sky blushed with the promise of sunrise, Nia Davis ran on, her resolve unbreakable. Every stride a testament to the quiet determination forged in classrooms, on tracks, and in the sanctuary of her own unwavering spirit. The next afternoon, Nia Davis arrived at Southside Middle School's cinder track, just as the late winter sun dipped behind a bank of slate-gray clouds. Her favorite neon green duffel swung from her shoulder, full of stopwatches, agility ladders, and cones. A small clutch of students, dozens by week's end, huddled near the starting line, their breath rising in puffs of vapor. Many of these kids had never seen a woman of color lead a running clinic, much less a black woman accompanied by a police officer. The air thrummed with a mixture of excitement and nervous tension. Nia set out bright orange cones in a zigzag pattern, then raised her voice in an energetic call. "All right, Team Southside, let's work on those quick feet." The children leapt into a warm-up, high knees and butt kicks, eyes wide as they followed her every movement. She circled among them, offering gentle corrections. "Drive your knees up higher, Marisol," and praise. "Great arm swing, Jamal." Their initial hesitance melted away in the rhythm of her encouragement. As she demonstrated a drill, her muscles moved with effortless precision, a living example of what dedication could achieve. Meanwhile, Officer Brian Thompson stood at the track's edge, folded arms and a tight jaw. Earlier that day, Nia had called him at the precinct. "I want you here," she'd said, voice firm but warm. "These kids need to see you running beside them, not just in a patrol car." Thompson's first response had been a reluctant refusal. "I'm not an athlete." But she had insisted, "You have a uniform, a badge. Bring that authority to the track and earn their trust." And so he came, in plain sweatpants and a borrowed hoodie, clutching a clipboard like a lifeline. After the warm-up, Nia blew her whistle and turned to Thompson. "Lieutenant, Officer Thompson, I want you to lead the next exercise." The children froze in place, exchanging surprised glances. Thompson swallowed, stepped forward, and cleared his throat. Under Nia's calm gaze, he instructed the kids in a simple shuttle run drill. Sprint 10 meters, pivot, sprint back. His voice wavered at first, but each time a youngster cheered, "Go, officer!" His confidence grew. Nia watched him closely, nodding encouragement. As Thompson coached, Nia joined the line of students, running the shuttle run alongside a shy boy named Malik, who had never finished a single lap. She fell in beside him, matching his pace, whispering pointers, "Shorten your stride, drive off the ball of your foot." With each circuit, Malik's shoulders straightened, his stride lengthened. When they crossed the finish line, he threw his arms in the air, a grin splitting his face. Thompson, clipboard lowered, let out a genuine laugh and gave Malik a fist bump, an image of unity that would stick with the children long after practice ended. By the close of the session, the track that had felt tense and unfamiliar now buzzed with camaraderie. Thompson approached Nia, wiping sweat from his brow. "I didn't know I could do that," he admitted, voice soft. Nia smiled, handing him a fresh stopwatch. "You just needed to remember you're more than a badge," she replied. Together, they gathered the cones and collapsed onto the cool metal bleachers, watching as the sun pierced through the clouds. In that quiet moment, the first true bridge between officer and runner, instructor and student, had been built on shared effort, mutual respect, and the simple joy of running side by side. The morning sun hung low in a pale blue sky as Nia Davis and Officer Brian Thompson set up cones and markers on the herringbone-patterned rubber lane of Southside Middle School's track. A light breeze carried the scent of dewy grass and melting asphalt. Nia arranged bright orange cones in a slalom course, each carefully spaced 2 meters apart, while Thompson unrolled lengths of colored athletic tape to mark start and finish lines. Around them, a dozen eager students in mismatched shorts and hoodies gathered, their faces a mixture of anticipation and nerves. Nia checked her stopwatch and called out, "Team, let's circle up!" The children assembled in a loose semicircle, shifting from one foot to the other. Thompson hovered at the edge, hands jammed into the pockets of his borrowed gray sweats, his police badge clipped to the waistband like a silent reminder of his other life. "Today," Nia began, voice bright, "we're learning pacing drills, how to control your speed so you can go the distance without burning out." She tapped her chest. "This is about more than running fast. It's about running smart." She demonstrated a 3-step cadence. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Her feet tapping the rubber surface in crisp rhythm. The kids mimicked her slowly at first, some tripping over their own feet, others giggling when they lost count. Nia moved among them, gently correcting posture, elbows in, eyes forward, and offering high fives to encourage. Thompson watched, brow furrowed, studying her every word. After 2 circuits, Nia wiped her brow and looked toward Thompson. "Your turn," she said. He straightened, cleared his throat, and stepped onto the track. Nia handed him a bright yellow baton. "Lead them through 1 lap at half speed," she instructed. Thompson hesitated, then raised the baton like a torch. "Follow the leader," he called, voice cracking. The children's eyes widened, but then they laughed and snapped into formation behind him. Together they jogged in a loose pack, Thompson's stride awkward at first. Nia jogged beside him, offering softly, "Shorten those strides. Keep your shoulders relaxed." He nodded, adjusting his gait, and the line of runners smoothed out behind him. At the halfway mark, Nia whistled sharply and switched places with Thompson. "Now we do a negative split," she explained. "Run the second half faster than the first." She surged ahead, feet humming, and the students chased her with newfound energy. Thompson fell in beside Malik, the shy boy who had struggled in Chapter 4. Placing a hand on Malik's shoulder, he guided him. "Keep your arms loose. Pretend you're pushing the air behind you." Malik's pace quickened, and he flashed a triumphant grin. They finished the lap in unison, breathing heavily, faces flushed with effort and excitement. The children erupted into applause, cheering for both coach and officer. Thompson looked to Nia, surprise and pride flickering across his face. As everyone slowed to a walk, Thompson raised his baton high and declared, "Great work, team! That's how we break barriers. 1 step at a time." Nia smiled, clapping him on the back. In that moment, the track was no longer divided by uniforms or suspicions, but united by the simple joy of moving together toward a common goal. The sun was dipping toward the western grandstands as the last of the students filtered off the track, their laughter trailing behind them like echoing ribbons. Nia Davis gathered her gear, cones stacked neatly atop the bleachers, stopwatches coiled in her neon duffel, when she sensed someone pausing at the top step. Officer Brian Thompson stood there, hands clasped around his clipboard, shoulders slightly hunched beneath his borrowed hoodie. The crisp autumn air carried the scent of fallen leaves and the distant rumble of evening traffic. Thompson cleared his throat, the sound almost lost in the soft hum of the track lights flicking on. His usual confident posture had given way to something more tentative. He shifted his weight from one foot to the other before speaking, voice low and measured. "Coach Davis, He paused, eyes flicking to the clipboard in his hands, as if searching for the right words. "I owe you an apology." Nia paused mid-zip on her bag, meeting his gaze. The fading light caught the badge clipped to his waist as he took a hesitant step closer. When I stopped you that morning, he continued, voice thick with regret, I saw a lone black woman running before dawn and jumped to conclusions. I questioned your motives, your integrity. I treated you like a suspect instead of a neighbor. His breath caught. I'm sorry for doubting you, for making you feel unwelcome in a place you love. A hush settled over the empty stadium as Nia let his words sink in. She remembered the doubt in his eyes that morning, and how she had held her ground. Now, witnessing his vulnerability, stirred something fierce but hopeful in her chest. She closed her duffel and set it gently on the bench. Thank you for saying that, she replied, voice calm but warm. Acknowledging your bias is the hardest step. Thompson exhaled, relief mixing with humility. He unclipped the badge and held it out to her, a symbolic gesture. I want to do better. For you, for these kids, for our community. Will you help me learn how to build trust instead of walls? His earnest question hung between them like an open door. Nia reached out, placing a hand on his forearm. The badge felt cool beneath her fingers. I will, she said softly. Together, we'll turn every doubt into understanding. As the track lights cast their glow over the empty lanes, they stood side by side, officer and runner, ready to rewrite the next chapter of their shared journey. The first light of dawn tinted the horizon in soft shades of rose and gold as Nia Davis stood among hundreds of runners at the starting corral of the Brookside City Marathon. The air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of morning dew and distant coffee carts lining Main Street. Wrist-tagged volunteers waved them forward, and the low murmur of excited conversation swelled to a hum of expectancy. Nia's heart thrummed not with nerves, but with a quiet confidence forged through months of training and the journey she'd shared with the community, and with Officer Brian Thompson. Clad in her usual racing kit, sleek navy singlet, shorts trimmed with reflective stripes, and shoes worn into perfection, Nia exchanged a brief nod with her coach, Hernandez, who pressed a firm hand to her shoulder. Beyond him, Thompson stood at the edge of the corral, not in uniform, but in a bright volunteer vest stamped Water Station Lead. He tipped his volunteer cap and raised a paper cup of water in salute. For a moment, their eyes met, and in that glance lay unspoken gratitude. She had opened a door for understanding, and he had walked through it. The starter's pistol cracked, echoing off the buildings, and Nia surged forward, each powerful stride carrying her past the cheering crowds. The city streets were lined with spectators, families waving homemade signs, local bands beating drums on street corners, and dozens of children from her Southside Middle School clinic holding up handwritten banners. Run like Nia, and trust, respect, unity. Their shouts rose above the race announcer's call, pushing her onward. At mile 8, Nia rounded the bend by Riverside Park, where Thompson had organized a special water station. Bright orange cones marked the chute, and Thompson stood behind a folding table stacked high with cups and handheld fan-style water sprayers. He called out her name, Nia, you're looking strong. She veered toward him, snatching a cup, and flashed him a grateful smile. Thank you, sir, she gasped, tossing back the water. As she pressed back into the flow, Thompson held up a small sign he'd painted himself. Strength knows no uniform. Nia's chest tightened at the sight, resolve steeling her legs for the miles ahead. The course wound through tree-lined avenues, past civic monuments and under historic archways. Each landmark marked another test of endurance. Mile 15's steady incline up Cedar Hill, Mile 18's sudden sharp turn under the old railway bridge. But Nia met them all with steady pacing, mindful breathing, and the memory of every practice with her students and every moment of growth with Thompson. As she approached Mile 24, the final stretch of cobblestone street leading to the finish line, fatigue tugged at her muscles. But the roar from the grandstands ahead pulled something deeper from within. Families from the clinic had gathered here, their faces shining, clutching laminated power safety passport certificates they'd earned months before. Malik, now athletic, confident, and wearing his own race bib, jumped forward to high-five her as she passed. Beyond him, Coach Hernandez waved her forward, tears glinting in his eyes. Finally, the finish arch came into view, its banner fluttering in a gentle breeze. Thompson stood just inside the chute, stopwatch in hand and volunteer vest dusted with cobblestone grit. As Nia crossed the line, he stepped forward, holding out a gleaming finisher's medal on a navy ribbon. She reached for it with shaking fingers, the weight of its cool metal grounding her triumph. Thompson fastened the medal around her neck, his expression proud and awed. A moment later, they turned together to face the crowd. Runners, volunteers, police officers, children, and neighbors, united in a single exultant cheer. In that chorus of voices, every doubt dissolved. The uniform and the singlet, the badge, and the bib, all converged into a shared narrative of respect, resilience, and community. For Nia Davis, the marathon finish was more than a personal best. It was the culmination of a journey that had transformed suspicion into solidarity and had shown a city what true unity could achieve. One stride, one lesson, one shared moment at a time.